She didn't even think twice. She had a nice voice. Practiced. This is exclusive to families. That was all. Just one phrase. As I stood there holding my phone to my ear, it dawned on me that I had just been excluded from my parents' anniversary celebration, something I assisted in paying for. I ceased to be a daughter at that same moment. I started to cause problems. I refrained from arguing. I refrained from crying. Something frigid took control of me, because I also knew that I was no longer bound the moment they decided I was no longer family. What did I decide to do next? It silently decimated all they believed to be under their control. Please hit like and leave a comment where you are watching before I tell you what occurred. This is the story for anyone who has ever been erased by their own family. Lissa is my name. Mid-30s independent photographer. Just me, my camera, and long hours chasing real feeling like no large team. No brand name. Work where the results speak for themselves has always appealed to me. Not a single applause. No announcements. Just outcomes. Perhaps this is why my family discovered early on that I was able to carry extra weight silently. We appeared sturdy from the outside, reputable, the type of close family neighbors. On the refrigerator are holiday cards, pictures in the hallway in frames, just long enough smiles to be convincing. On the inside though, everything was predetermined. The headline included my sister, gifted, magnetic, the one that all the stories came back to. My brother took on the role of mediator. He was the organizer, the clarifier, and the person who was always prepared with explanations for why things were the way they were. Then there was me, trustworthy, silent, the person who eliminated issues without requiring acknowledgement. I contributed the same way I usually did, with money. The necessity was always assumed, not because it was explicitly requested. An urgent text regarding repairs, bills that accumulated more quickly than anticipated, a temporary difficult period that, for whatever reason, never ended. I gave contributions promptly, impulsively, and without anticipating credit, just like some people provide an apology. Each transfer was evidence that I was still a part of the group. For example, nobody would challenge my position if I maintained the basis. It was crumbs of gratitude, just a quick thank you. You're a lifesaver, said softly. After that, the discussion continued. Nobody inquired about the experience of always filling the void. Nobody questioned the expense of remaining so dependable. This was typical, I told myself. Families function because one member remains dependable. I was not immediately informed when my parents' anniversary was approaching. Not from them, not by way of an invitation. Only pieces. A remark on dates. A casual comment about everyone being together. Since my name had always been there, I assumed it was. Why wouldn't it be? I had contributed to the cost. For years, I had backed them. I was their daughter. That presumption was true until it wasn't. Until I came to the realization that I wasn't included in the image they were honoring. And it wasn't a sudden realization. The way truth sneaks in when it's been waiting for you to catch up. By the time I realized what was going on, it was no longer possible to refer to it as a misunderstanding. This had already gone too far, whatever it was. It felt strange in the weeks before the anniversary. Not explosive, not very dramatic, quietly incorrect. At first, nothing flew up, no disagreements, not a scene, little requests that were made so frequently that I felt the pressure before I had a chance to question them. My sister texted me one afternoon, informal, well-known. She wanted assistance for the cost of a relative's trip. She remarked, "It's not a big amount." It wasn't an absurd number. However, it wasn't nothing either. I took longer than normal to look at the message. I hesitated, not because I couldn't afford it, but more because I was tired of acting as though these demands were only temporary. So I declined. Just one word. No justification. "I'm not sorry," she answered nearly right away. Worse, not angry. "I am disappointed." The kind of message that is meant to bruise without making a mark. She claimed that this was not what she had anticipated from me, but everyone was hoping for a smooth outcome, that I was making our parents feel more stressed at a crucial time. The guilt came on its own. Even so, I nearly sent the money. Nearly, however, I didn't. At that point, everything changed. The pace of calls decreased. The length of messages decreased. Conversations ended abruptly when I reached out. They were courteous, aloof, and nearly cut. I convinced myself that I was dreaming. Families go through stages. People become preoccupied. However, quiet carries weight. And this one, calm and deliberate, pressed in. I finally asked the question I had been thinking about a few days later. I spoke to my sister over the phone about the anniversary. Said, "I just wanted to make sure. Dates, place, basic things." A pause occurred. It's a good relationship. Not a call that was dropped. There was a purposeful delay, long enough to indicate that she was carefully selecting her words. She repeated it after that. It's exclusive to family. No voice was raised. No justification. She stated it as if it were clear. She seemed to be reminding me of something I ought to have known all along while she was speaking. I noticed how tightly I was holding the phone, and I remember staring at my hand. My knuckles were white. I questioned her about her meaning. One more pause. Then it got colder. It wasn't personal, she claimed. There wasn't much room there. That choices had already been made. My parents wanted something simple, she added. She stated a lot of things, carefully selected and arranged in a tidy stack, but she omitted the one thing that really mattered. I did not receive an invitation, not overlooked, not disregarded, not included. After the call ended, I listened to the faint hum of passing traffic while sitting in my car with the engine off. I began mentally reliving the previous few years. Each transfer, every late-night conversation in which I assured them that everything would be alright. I intervened each time so that nobody else had to experience discomfort or awkwardness. I then considered the guest list that I had heard about, the individuals who succeeded, companions, distant family members, neighbors, those who had never contributed to keeping the lights on. It eventually settled at that point. I hadn't been providing for a family. A version of it that didn't require my presence had been funded by me. I wasn't a daughter in that photo. I was a replaceable, quiet, and useful line item, and I couldn't take my eyes off of it once I saw it so clearly. The party itself wasn't what broke me. It was acknowledging that this was not an accident. It wasn't perplexity. It was a choice, and they felt totally at ease making it. Everything became silent that evening in a way I wasn't used to. Not the reassuring type. The kind that lets you hear the hum of the refrigerator. The wall clock is ticking away. The sound of your own breathing when no one is requesting anything. I refrained from crying. I was taken aback. I anticipated a surge of emotions, including despair, rage, and the need to defend myself to someone who might at last get it. It never materialized. Rather, a distinct, almost clinical serenity descended. I opened my laptop while seated at my desk, not at work. Due to habit, half-edited photographs, with light and shadow and precisely framed features that revealed their identities without further explanation, gleamed back at the viewer. I came to the realization that I had been overexposing myself in my own life to allow others to stand comfortably in the frame. I shut down the laptop. I didn't consider what I owed anyone for the first time in years. I considered what it would be like to leave the part in which I had been cast. Not in a big way, not with rage, just in silence. It dawned on me that I didn't have to continue acting like I was family if I wasn't. I didn't have to argue. I didn't require authorization. I could just stop. I took my time packing, not like a runner, like a person making intentional movements. First, the camera, the ideal lens, cards with memories, clothes that made me feel like myself, not like a guest. Everything was lined up on the bed. I didn't shake my hands. I gave my closest friend a call. On the second ring, she heard it. I'm heading out of town, I declared. No justifications, no explanations. Where, she inquired. Paris. It was shockingly simple to say it out. She didn't chuckle. She didn't ask questions, just help. Asked for my dates and assisted me in planning the vacation. That was all. Afterwards, something changed when I closed the suitcase. I wasn't fleeing to exact revenge on anyone. I was asserting my right to hear myself once more. That distinction was important. The following morning, everything felt neutral at the airport. Nobody was familiar with me. Nobody had any expectations. I felt lighter than I had in years, surrounded by strangers. I didn't feel like I was leaving anything behind as the city grew smaller beneath the window. After putting it off for so long, I felt like I was finally making progress. This wasn't retaliation. Not quite yet. Not disobedience. I had never drawn a border without giving an explanation before. I also knew that nothing would return to how it was once the line was drawn. I was no longer the person who made everyone comfortable at my expense. For me, the anniversary weekend arrived in silence. Paris didn't know about my family when she woke up. Between buildings, light glided. Cafes laying out chairs were rocked by scooters. With coffee warming my hands, I stood by the window of my tiny hotel room and experienced something new. Permission. I was not required by anyone. Nobody was waiting to see what I would conceal, smooth over, or correct. The celebration had already started at home. Even though I wasn't there, I could clearly envision it. Linens in white, stiff in his jacket. Dad grinned for pictures. Those who were sufficiently impressed by the family. Glasses are clinking. There is music in the corner. The room erupted in laughter, and one chair was absent. I didn't have any major plans. That is important. I had no intention of making a statement when I woke up. No prepared line. No well-written message. I did what I usually do in a new city that afternoon. I strolled. I let the streets guide me. Like brushed metal, the river caught the late sun. Leaning on the railing were couples. A street performer gently tested his notes. I raised my camera and took frame-by-frame pictures of the light. I was after honesty rather than perfection. Later, I edited a couple images back in my room. Not a lot of captions. No mention of home. Only me. Only the city. Simply breathing. I just said, chasing quiet moments, letting joy take its time. When I shared them, that was all. Setting my phone aside, I went to eat by myself. It was a tiny restaurant. Tables closed. Butter and bread in the air. I watched individuals live their tales, without interfering with mine, while eating slowly and listening to conversations that I didn't comprehend. Being alone didn't feel like absence for once. It was like being in space. My absence began to reverberate back at the party. Subtle at first. My cousin wanted to know where I was. A neighbor looked round, perplexed. Someone thought I would be late. Throughout it, my mother grinned and gave evasive explanations, such as work stuff, which seems plausible until it doesn't. Then they saw my post, Paris at nightfall, coffee near the window, light is falling precisely where it should. Quietly but steadily, the question began to circulate, why isn't she here? Before anyone stated anything out loud, my sister saw it. She continued to make adjustments, checking the band, correcting place cards, and fake a smile. Her comfort was control. It was also slipping. The environment had transformed by the time dinner was served. Discussions came to a halt. There was no laughter. At last, someone confronted my mother directly about why her daughter wasn't joining them in celebrating. Her response faltered and was smoothed over, but the fissures were still apparent. I had no prior knowledge of any of this. My phone began to vibrate as I was making my way back to the hotel in the warm metropolis. Make call after call. At home, I didn't get scared. I was intrigued. I went inside after letting them ring till they stopped. My mother sent the first message. Brief. It is urgent. Just a polite plea with no explanation. Before I called, I waited. Her voice broke as soon as she mentioned my name when I eventually responded. She said the guests were perplexed. The situation was becoming unmanageable. People were conversing. A few even departed early. Why would I do this to them? She questioned. I wanted to know exactly what I had done. Take a moment. You understand what I mean, she remarked. Take it down. Assist in resolving this. I didn't speak up. I refrained from arguing. Calmly, I responded. I didn't bring up the party. I didn't bring them up. Instead of responding to anything I said, they were responding to what they saw. No response. She asked me to consider the family as the call came to an end. My sister called a few minutes later. This time, sharper, making accusations. She said that I had embarrassed them, damaged our parents' reputations, acted selfishly, and prioritized attention over loyalty. She insisted that I remove it right away. The only important question I posed to her was, when exactly did you decide I wasn't family? She attempted to interrupt me, said that I was misrepresenting things, being over the top, that adults deal with conflict in different ways. I held out, give her time to finish. Do we even know each other? I asked in a crisp, quiet voice, quiet, not taken aback. Just unadulterated, exposed silence, the kind that occurs when someone recognizes that the script they've been employing is no longer effective. Without responding, she hung up. My brother came next, peaceful and organized. He informed me that I had elevated a manageable issue, that I ought to have approached them in private, discussed professionalism, consequences, and image, said that individuals might be impacted by my posts in ways I hadn't thought of. I informed him that I had been thinking about them for years through silence, patience, and payments. I'm done trying to solve issues that I didn't cause. He sighed, as people do when they believe reason ought to prevail. He said that I was exaggerating the situation. He made a hazy internet statement about loyalty and priorities an hour later. However, the remarks didn't go as planned. If she helped pay, why wasn't she invited? Why are there conditions associated with family? He didn't respond. I slept with the window open that night, unconcerned with my family's pain. The city buzzed. A clear line was drawn across the floor by the morning sun. I felt rejuvenated, not victorious. I'm just settled. The celebration slowly fell apart back home. Visitors departed early. The band left. There was leftover cake and white linens. When they came into contact with the truth, the evening they had planned could not endure. I refrained from gloating. I didn't keep up with update. What I had been doing for everyone else all along was accomplished by distance. My phone buzzed later. My mum. This time, her voice was quieter. She requested that I return home, declared their desire to make things right, to restore normalcy to everything. Typical, that I realized, has always meant paying and going away. Calmly, I told her, I'm not angry. I will no longer pretend. I'm currently working on something new. She sobbed. I stayed put. Once more, I stood by the window. Along the river, boats floated. Steady, not bothered. I remembered all the times I had kept quiet to maintain a one-way flow of serenity. It wasn't a noisy altercation. Don't yell. New spectacular departure. Just be truthful. And stillness, which at last accomplished what my justifications were unable to. The next days were lighter. Not simple, but lighter. The sound became quieter. Calls ceased. Messages became slower. At home, the fax was so. I did not receive an invitation. I provided cash assistance. Questions were so. My parents' friends became aloof. Invitations ceased. Discussions became shorter. My family's dependable image was no longer in place. Once more, but with more gentleness, my parents stretched out, wanted to start over, did not offer an apology, ignored the exclusion. All I needed was familiarity. I got it. Familiar had always meant my support and quiet. I didn't give them either. I stayed longer in Paris because I had to go there for work, not to escape it. A gallery was interested in seeing more. Your photos feel honest, like they're not trying to impress anyone, a magazine editor commented. I scheduled shoots. I responded to emails. Vision, not sacrifice, was required at work. It was no longer painful to think of my family. It seemed far away. I had outgrown an old role. Nothing has been damaged by me. I had broken free from a cycle that had erased me. Applause did not bring about peace. It came softly, in mornings that were mine and at jobs that required vision rather than self. I was not victorious. Nothing was taken by me. To keep them comfy, I just stopped shrinking. The true change was that families should not feel like a debt that must be repaid in order to be included. Boundaries are not a form of punishment. They are lucid. If you've ever been shunned by the individuals you consistently attended, remember that it's not harsh to choose yourself. It's true.